Hi there, welcome to this video where I'm going to be showing you how to grow oyster mushrooms in a really simple way using a 5-gallon bucket. Growing mushrooms at home is simple and requires minimal equipment or knowledge. In this guide, we'll show you how to grow mushrooms in just one bucket for home-scale cultivation. However, you can also scale this up for farm-scale production. To get started, you'll need a 20-liter or 5-gallon bucket, half a kilogram or 1 pound of oyster mushroom grain spawn, and 2.5 kilos or 5.5 pounds of either chopped straw or hardwood chips. To summarize the process, you'll drill holes in the bucket, pasteurize the substrate with hot water, layer it in the bucket with spawn, and let it grow for around 2 weeks. After this time, the mushrooms will be ready to fruit out of the holes in the bucket. Begin by preparing the bucket and drilling a series of 12mm holes, approximately half an inch, around the bucket, spaced 10 to 15 centimeters, about 5 inches, apart in a diamond-shaped pattern. These holes will provide air exchange and a place for the mushrooms to grow. Several types of drilling tools will work for making holes in your bucket, such as a standard wood drill bit, a grinding stone wheel, or a hole saw bit, as used in this example. You should end up with roughly 15 to 20 holes spaced 10 to 15 centimeters apart in a diamond-shaped pattern. After drilling, clean up any rough edges with sandpaper. Next, add a few smaller drainage holes, around 3mm or 1/8 of an inch, in the bottom of the bucket. This will ensure that any excess moisture in the substrate can drain out of the bottom instead of pooling up. Moving on, we will now pasteurize and hydrate the substrate. This step adds water to the substrate and ensures it's clean and ready for the spawn to grow on. In this example, we'll be using a straw substrate, but hardwood chips are also an option. However, using sawdust or wood pellets is not recommended as their small particle size can lead to issues such as compacted substrate and poor air exchange in the middle. For a 20-liter or 5-gallon bucket, you'll need approximately 2.5 kilograms of dry weight substrate, whether it's chopped straw or hardwood chips. Once hydrated, the substrate will weigh around 8 to 8.5 kilograms. There are several ways to pasteurize substrate, and we encourage you to watch our video on 5 low-tech methods for more information. Our preferred method on our farm is the high-fade lime bath, but if you don't have hydrated lime, we suggest using the hot water bath method instead. To do this, you'll need a larger container, such as a plastic tote or barrel filled with hot water deep enough to submerge your substrate. Aim for a temperature of approximately 70 degrees Celsius or 160 Fahrenheit, which can be achieved by topping up mainly with hot water at around 50 degrees Celsius or 120 Fahrenheit from the tap, then adding a couple of kettles of boiling water. Make sure the temperature stays within the range of 65 to 80 degrees Celsius. Once your water is ready, it's time to add your substrate. You can either add it loose by tossing in the straw or wood chips and swishing it around until it's well covered. Alternatively, you can place it in a pillowcase or netted sack to make it easier to keep it all together. Weigh it down, ensure it's fully submerged, and remove and drain it the following day. Make sure the straw or wood chips are fully submerged in the water, and if needed, you can put something on top to weigh it down. Let it soak in the water for 12 to 24 hours. The first hour or so will pasteurize the substrate, and the rest of the time will help it fully hydrate. The next day, drain off all the excess water, and you're ready to inoculate and make your bucket. This step is straightforward. We will simply layer the substrate and the spawn into the bucket, ensuring that they are in contact with each other. First, we begin with a generous double handful of the substrate, followed by a smaller handful of the spawn sprinkled on top. After 2 to 3 weeks of incubation, your spawn will begin to grow and fully colonize the substrate inside the bucket. You'll know it's time to fruit your mushrooms when you see bright white mycelium covering the surface of the substrate. usually around 2 weeks after making the bucket for most oyster strains. However, if it's been cooler during incubation or you're growing a cool weather strain, it may take a few extra days for the mycelium to fully colonize. To encourage the growth of mushrooms, it is essential to place the bucket in an environment with sufficient light, fresh air, and humidity. You can put the bucket in a shaded area outside, like under a tree or a bush, or in a shed, garage, or inside your house, as long as it receives some light. It is crucial to humidify the area around the bucket to create the appropriate conditions for the mushrooms to grow. If you place the bucket outside during a humid season like autumn or early spring, the mushrooms may grow on their own without additional effort. However, in most cases, you'll need to add some humidity by spraying the area around the bucket. To ensure the environment around the bucket is sufficiently humid, use a water sprayer or hose and spray the area at least 2 to 3 times daily. Around 5 to 7 days after placing the bucket in the fruiting conditions, small mushrooms should start forming in some of the holes on the bucket. Although not all holes may produce mushrooms, they should appear around the same time. Witnessing the tiny mushroom pins grow into full-sized mushrooms is a magical experience, and it's essential to keep spraying and humidifying the mushrooms every day while they mature. Depending on the temperature, it can take anywhere from 4 to 5 days to up to 2 weeks for the mushrooms to mature. If the bucket is kept outside and the temperature is a bit cooler, your mushrooms will be ready to harvest when the clusters start to swell and the caps widen and flatten out. To harvest them, simply reach behind and twist and pull them away from the bucket. If they come off easily, then they are ready to harvest and you can enjoy a lovely crop of mushrooms. After harvesting, the bucket will fruit again with a second, and maybe even a third, crop, approximately 2 weeks apart, as long as you keep it in the same fruiting conditions as the first crop. When the bucket has finished growing completely, you can dispose of the substrate and start a new bucket if you want to continue growing mushrooms. To recycle the bucket for another batch, tap out the spent substrate, place it on the compost pile, and wash the bucket. Then you can repeat the process again. That's all there is to it. This is a straightforward method of growing mushrooms at home that practically anyone can do. Like our videos for more videos like how to grow gourds in plastic containers, subscribe and visit our channel.